Hey guys, welcome to episode 86 of The Green Life. Today, we're going to dive into the world of fitness, but done on a plant-based diet. I'm going to speak to Kate Galli, who is an Australian-based health coach, personal trainer, podcaster, and author. Kate actually is wonderful because she started her journey really early as a teenager, becoming vegetarian, not really understanding that vegetarianism still contributes to animal cruelty, until she later on learned about this and became vegan. And in a space like the gym, where you are personal training people yourself, her peers were judging her for this decision and telling her she would never have the body that she had by eating animal products. Well, this she proved them wrong, as well as actually training and helping other clients that have been with her for almost 20 years to get the best results, learning from her, using her as an example of someone that can have the perfect body, the body they want, on a plant-based diet. So we're going to just demystify a little bit of these fitness thoughts and myths, and we are going to talk about facts. I also want to talk about her work. She is a wonderful coach, but she's also an author, and her book is all about getting positive philosophies and outcome and mindset around being plant-based. So I'm really excited to go into this, but before that, I would just want to give Namawell a big shout out for the J2 juicer and the C2. C2 is a combination of J2 with the blender, high-speed blender that can make soups and smoothies and creams and dressings, anything and everything. So it's a great upgrade if you want one machine in your kitchen. And if you're looking for that, I have 10% discount in the show notes. Also, I am an affiliate of Robert Moore's herbs, Dr. Moore's herbs, which are amazing. As you know, I use them myself and I suggest them to my clients when we do cleanses together, and they are absolutely fantastic. So if you want to help the podcast by buying your herbs through my link, I do get a little bit of a kickback, and that really supports me in covering expenses and just really carrying on moving this podcast forward. Also, I'm posting my link to my work as well as my retreat here in Portugal, which will be open in the summer. And as every summer, we host our retreats, but mostly we support other practitioners in hosting their retreats. So if you want to know more, talk to me, email me, and I'll be happy to share. All right, without further ado, let's dive into this world of fitness done with a full-on plant-based diet with my guest, Kate. Welcome, Kate. Hi, Kate. Thank you so much for joining me on The Green Life today. How are you?
Chantal, it is my absolute pleasure to be here, and I am super well. Thank you.
Well, first of all, also thank you for joining me all the way from Australia. It's really early in the morning there. So I'm very impressed by you being awake and looking so great. It's so early, like it's 4 o'clock, right?
3 a.m. actually.
3 a.m.
So, and I've never spoken to anyone in Portugal before. So I love this technology when it works. It's absolutely amazing.
It is really good. Okay, I'm really fascinated by your story and your work because, first of all, being in the fitness and coaching and nutrition and really basing everything on plants it is becoming more popular. But especially when we talk about fitness and we talk about personal training, that's something that is still kind of misunderstood. And I love that you actually really educate people on building the body they want using plants and how to do it in a healthy way. And I'd love to know your story. First of all, how you went plant-based, but also how did you develop this passion for plants into a business?
Absolutely. So I guess traveling way back, I was that little girl that loved animals and still ate animals. And I became vegetarian at 16. And like so many of us, it would take way too long before I found out that I actually needed to be vegan if I was doing it for the animals. And I must say, it was the documentary Cowspiracy that kind of shone a light on the lies that many of us all of us pretty much have been told. And so I saw Cowspiracy and became vegan around 8 years ago now. And at that point in time, to paint the picture, I'd already been a personal trainer probably about a decade, and I was working in a very gym bro gym, and I was already the I guess the weird one in that gym for being vegetarian. You know, all the boys there were big on the hateful keto approach and very high meat, high animal approaches, and so I was already that weird vegetarian. And I rocked into the gym one day and said, I'm going vegan. And I remember one of the boys saying, well, goodbye, lean muscle mass. And, thankfully he was wrong. He was wrong about the way my body would look and feel on a plant based diet, as so many of us know now. However, backtracking to back then, when I made that decision to become vegan for the animals, I was a little bit nervous as well because I had consumed and even perpetuated all this propaganda that the fitness industry puts out there about the super high protein, carbs make you fat. You know, I fell for all those myths like so many people, and I'd kind of sculpted a body on a vegetarian diet that I was pretty happy with. And Chantel, I used to have up to 21 egg whites a day. I'm so embarrassed to admit. All those hens and little baby boy chickens were dying for my vanity, pretty much. So, anyway, I adopted the diet. I got super strategic with finding all the micronutrients you needed because I pretty much had a point to prove, right? I knew everyone in
Mm-hmm.
the gym, the fellow trainers, my clients, I knew they would all be watching, and I felt like I would be letting the lifestyle down if I didn't do it right. So thankfully, 8 years ago, amazing individuals and resources like Brenda Davis, who I know is a repeat guest on your podcast, people like her were out there sharing how to do it right. And I probably made it harder than I needed to originally because I wanted to get every single little micronutrient in every single meal. And we don't need to do that. However, yeah, it was so much easier than I expected. The food was so much more delicious than I expected. And basically, it's just all upside.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. I am so happy. Well, I'm so happy because, as you mentioned, in the fitness industry, does perpetuate lies, and we don't talk about that enough, right? We talk about it a little bit. We mostly talk about how government's guidelines may be misleading, and we talk about it generically about health and how a plant-based diet needs to be more mainstream than it is, so people understand there are many health benefits. But when it comes to fitness, I think there is a little bit of a tattoo still, and a taboo still. Sorry, and I had Terry Washington on the
Mm.
podcast, and he's a plant-based bodybuilder. So it was fascinating to talk to him about his journey. Considering actually he's been pretty much vegan his whole life, with the exception of a short time when he lived with his grandparents um, in Jamaica. And then when he moved to the US, he went back to being a vegetarian vegan. And now he really does help people build their own body, like engineer their own body on plants. And I was wondering, as you were transitioning whilst you were working as a PT, what was the approach with your clients? Because I know from my experience, from having friends that are PTs, there is an element of nutritional advice that goes with the training for your clients. Did you shift the advice for them too, or did you just focus on yourself?
I was very outspoken initially, and perhaps we'll get to that, the kind of angry vegan phase before I calm down a little bit. But definitely, I led with facts, not love. And I was very vocal about why I was making the change because it was so urgent to me. And I thought sharing the why would impact other people to make the change. Sadly, it didn't. So, yeah, I was definitely very forward in suggesting more plants in my clients' diet. And it probably wasn't the most effective approach. Focusing on the animals for the vast majority of my clients wasn't the most effective approach. So I was a bit of a slow learner, but I kind of learned that you have to be a lot more patient and strategic and make it about your client's health. That's why they're there with you in the first place.
Mm.
Again, a lot of my clients probably thought I was a bit extreme as the vegetarian. And maybe my goals weren't their goals. Again, they saw I was a bit extreme with my fitness and with my nutrition. And as I said, they have their own goals. And so it was hard to get them to take on the advice about more plants. But bit by bit, with me pushing less and just, I guess, talking about the delicious food and the recipe wins and just really focusing on the deliciousness and the health aspects, bit by bit, people transformed their diets to include a lot more plants and started to see the benefits. And by people, I mean many of them, but not all of them, because a lot of people they're stuck in the way that they're currently thinking, and their mind and their heart isn't open yet. So it's been a mixed bag. However, I guess I see the way you walk the talk and the energy you have and the strength that you have and the way that your body doesn't like all of a sudden lose all its muscle and gain a whole bunch of fat. It's planting those little vegan seeds for them down the track. They can see that it can be done and how
Mm.
deliciously it can be done.
Totally. And there's a nice element here about business actually you can tap into. Because a lot of the people that are listening to the podcast are either they are entrepreneurs or coaches, or they want to be maybe. And I like what you said, at the beginning, you were not as strategic as you should have been. And I was wondering how, if you have to look back, what would be the advice you give yourself then in terms of business, how to approach your clients, so that I'm guessing some of them may have turned away and be like, actually, I don't want to work with you, because I don't know if that's the case. Or maybe not even say it and just not come back. I mean, that happens sadly when some people are confronted with different, I guess, thoughts and belief systems. And they can be quite resistant, and maybe they just don't have the courage to be confrontational, but they can be like, this philosophy doesn't work for me. I'm off.
100%. My advice to me is to get better at meeting people where they are and to recognize that, like, not everyone's me. Not everyone, like, we all have different values and beliefs and life experiences. And I learned what I learned about how the animals were suffering and made the change overnight. And that's me, and that worked for me. However, my clients are different. The language that we use is so important. I remember one of my dear, dear, dear clients. I'd obviously just done some activism, it was anonymous for the voiceless, I think, holding the screens on the streets. And I came back and I was training this gent at 6 a.m. in the morning like normal. And I talked about dairy mums being raped. And that word just did not resonate with him, and the shock on his face, I learned very quickly that there are some words that we do not use in relation to the animals. We talk about it naturally with our vegan animal rights activist friends. However, with the clients that aren't yet there yet, pick your words and pick your approaches. And so I guess I would say to Kate back then, calm down and chill and lead with love and compassion and deliciousness. However, also, I have so much empathy for the animal vegans, the angry vegans out there that I used to be, because you're just filled with so much hurt and frustration, and it's hard to block it all the time. We block our emotions and what we're feeling most of the time. We block it when we walk through the supermarket and see bodies. We block it when someone's eating something in front of you. We block it all the time. And then sometimes we let it out a little less graciously than we should. And I have compassion for me back then and for all our listeners who might be, relating to what I'm sharing.
Totally. It's funny. I just had a conversation today with a friend, and I said to him, could you just stop eating animals? You don't need to. Like, plants have so much goodness, and you see it, And he said to me, but I don't eat animals. I eat meat. When they are on my plates,
Oh,
they're not
no.
animals. And for a moment, I stopped and I thought that I said, what do you think this meat come from? And then I
Yeah.
realized that, the dissonance is so acute
Yeah.
because we have chosen words to describe food versus animals that disconnect the animal from the
100%.
food. So people, when they look at the plates, actually don't even think that there might be a chicken. There might have been a chicken that was part of what you're eating, or a pig or a cow. They don't actually think about the animal. And it's surprising because I'm like, where, like, how can you not think that this is, part of a being? But it's so fascinating how words can be so powerful. So I do have compassion for us when we are angry about it, especially when we do, activism. I also had to learn that you can't make people feel guilty. They shut down and they don't want to
100%.
hear it, right? So it does hinder the I guess the purpose, because they don't want to listen, they don't want to hear it, and then you're not getting anywhere. So
Mm.
unfortunately, we have to be diplomatic. We have to be a little bit more political when we discuss these things with our clients, and it becomes a challenge, but it's possible to face it and actually to convince people to even consider an alternative by planting the seeds that you mentioned. I think that's really important. Um, what about your colleagues though? Because obviously now you're proving to your colleagues that you're not getting fat, the carbs are not a problem, and that actually you can get more than enough protein on the plant-based diet that allow you to continue with your fitness. Did anybody get inspired to try it as well in your circle?
So I've absolutely proved the point for the particular trainer who said goodbye lean muscle mass. I checked in with him a year or so later when my body hadn't changed for the worse, and he said he wasn't very gracious. He said, "Well, I think it's easier for females." Like again, the disconnect there is huge because I had less muscle to maintain than this huge guy. It's ridiculous, as the Tories and the Nemais of the world are proving to us all. I think my clients, I'm that vegan that they would gladly refer the individual who was curious, plant-based curious or vegan curious to. However, for them, it's not the right time. I think they still assume it's harder, which is one of the myths that many people assume until they spend a lot of time with one of us. I actually went out for lunch with half a dozen of my dear clients last weekend, and we went to a vegan restaurant. Wasn't my choice, one of the gents picked it. And the food was amazing. It was vegan Thai and it was so delicious. And I think they were all a bit shocked by how much I ate because they haven't eaten with me before. And anyone that eats with a personal trainer for the first time, or anyone who prioritizes fitness, they're like, oh my goodness, you actually eat. And it's little seeds like that where they see and taste the delicious food and the quantity of it. And bit by bit, they're like, oh, a couple of them said, actually, if someone cooked me this food, I could eat like this every day.
Mm.
And, the point is, it's actually not that hard to cook like that, but they don't know that yet.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's stepping away from what ingredients are you using. I mean, I find it easier to actually cook without animals than when I used to cook animals. So it's a fascinating thing, but I think we are so, again, conditioned to think in a certain way that it's really hard for us to be like, I can swap, whatever animal part for pulses or tofu and I'll be fine. So it can be a bit of a challenge, but it's true, when there is good food in front of you, it really doesn't matter. People don't generally think about it being vegan or not. They think just how delicious is this food. And then you can prove the point that actually they are getting all the macronutrients they need and there is no deficiencies there. In fact, they get more micronutrients even because now you're tapping into
100%.
an abundance of vitamins and minerals, and you don't have to, you're actually adding on to your well-being. So how has your business and your approach and your work changed from 8 years ago to now? What have you added on? What ventures have you gotten into that is expanding on what you were doing for your personal reasons, and then so that you can share with others?
So it's been a long 8 years in that once I discovered the vegan lifestyle and the urgency, that just became my primary focus. It was all I wanted to talk about on my podcast. The ethical side of living a vegan lifestyle just became my huge focus, and not so much health and fitness.
Mm.
And my clients, some of my dear clients, have been with me literally 18 years, like many
Wow.
of them a decade. They've been with me a very, very, very long time. And so they were making this very frustratingly slow change to more plant based in their lifestyle. And it wasn't really enough for me. And I was having amazing conversations on the podcast with the people that I most respect in the vegan and plant-based world. And so that was going on for, say, 6 years or so. And then I wrote a book last year. I wrote a book called The Plant Positive Journal. And it is actually, it came about because my dear mum, a number of years ago, she bought me a gratitude diary for Christmas. And it was the most beautiful, stunning daily planner filled with artwork. And it was just a beautiful thing that I used every single day to plan my day to come the night before. However, it was missing something. It wasn't vegan. It didn't talk about the vegan lifestyle and the animals and the planet. And I thought, what if I created something so beautiful that people used every single day? And then also, it was planting all these little vegan seeds. And so that's what I created with the Plant Positive Journal. And I call it my little vegan Trojan horse, because a lot of my non vegan clients and non vegans all around the world are just buying it because it's a beautiful gift, or buying it to use as a daily planner. And it's going to get into people's houses, thousands of people's houses. And bit by bit, there are the vegan recipes. And I guess also all the steps I take and the steps I suggest to my clients so far as creating the most effective mindsets to make your best eating and exercising action simple and sustainable. So everything I've learned over the past 18 years. And so push come to shove, after 8 years of I guess balancing between the personal training and the podcast and now the journal, I'm at a point now where I'm retiring from personal training at the end of the
Oh, wow.
year, and I'm focusing purely on everything vegan and plant-based about my business. So I'm at a point where I
Wow.
can go full on with that side of the business, which is amazing. But so far as learnings to our listeners, it's really hard because you kind of, if you have a business that isn't catering just to vegans, which I guess is probably what most of us want, right? We just want to
Hmm.
be able to not filter what we say, and just to be able to give the amazing advice for living a plant-based lifestyle, and for our clients to take that advice and get the results without any of the butt meat, butt cheese, any of that rubbish. I
Yeah.
don't know what the learning is, because I worked harder than I would like for longer than I would like at both of them, all of them, before I got to this stage. So I think it's just I don't know, it's a consistency and a drive and a lot of self-care along the way as well, because our bodies aren't machines and we can't just go and go and go and be on work mode and nothing else.
Mm.
Um, so that's where I'm at with the business right now.
Wow. Okay. Tell me a little bit more about the book, though. How did you think about how to structure it, how to design it, what to put in it so that people would buy it? Because I guess it is a plant positive journal. And first of all, people might not actually know what that means as a title. So maybe deconstructing how you came up with a title, and also what people can expect to get out of that.
Amazing. So I guess it's a step-by-step guide to mastering your time and your mind while adopting a healthy plant-based lifestyle. And it's for the plant-based curious individual. So the person who's heard a lot about this plant-based thing, but is a bit anxious about how to do it well and healthily and doesn't really know what's involved. It's also for my heart, for the existing vegan animal rights activists. I love you all out there who maybe you're not prioritizing your health, you're just in it for the animals, and you're existing on vegan junk food,
Hmm.
and you want better energy, and you know that you need to be in it long term for the animals, and as such you need to look after yourself and your health. It's for that individual. And it's also for the person who just wants a beautiful time management tool. Because to be honest, the gratitude diary that spurred all of this, and Melanie Spears created that, and she's amazing. And I've actually worked with her. She's my mentor. She's an Australian based lady. And her gratitude diary talks about the moons and the stars, and it has all this information in it that I never read. I've never read any of it. I bought the diary for years, never read that info, but I used it just because it was beautiful.
Mm.
And I'm hoping some people will buy the Plant Positive Journal just because it's beautiful. And then bit by bit, they'll be like, what's this lady banging on about? What's this beautiful looking recipe? What's the, like, all
Yeah.
of the additional info, bit by bit, no pressure, in their own time, they'll jump on board with what resonates with them. And some of it is purely just about the mind and creating the most effective mindset so far as your health and fitness. It's not all about the animals, but like it's snuck in there regularly about
Mm.
the animals.
Yeah, perfect. Um, hey, I was wondering, as you write the journal, you mentioned helping people that are vegan for the animals getting healthier. I like to actually tap into the subject. So it's a very dear subject to my heart because
Mm,
I always say that just being vegan is not enough. We have to be
mm,
healthy vegans because we portray what the lifestyle is supposed to be. And there is a massive disconnect there. So veganism per se as a movement is becoming popular. A lot of products are available now. Like you can go anywhere in the most, even smallest supermarket and you'll find some vegan things that are like biscuits or whatever. But a lot of them are processed, like hyper processed, and not exactly the healthiest food. So can first of all, can you talk to me about um, your approach to this when you have to educate people so they don't feel judged? That's something that comes up a lot. You're like, why are you judging me? I'm doing this for the animals. Who cares about my health? I've seen that as a comment. And also like, I don't care, like as long as it's vegan, it's fine. And I like to actually really drill into this concept that just because something is vegan is not healthy, and how we can shift the mindset that maybe vegan activists would have that are maybe not thinking about health, but they're thinking only about the animals.
So personally, I think one of the best ways to advocate for the animals is to be fit, strong, happy, and healthy. And I focused a lot more on the happy in recent times. And just from my experience of doing that activism on the street, if you look healthy, you're going to get less grief from the individuals that are coming up and wanting to give you the weak vegan comments. It actually makes the activism so much easier because what can they say? Like you're advocating for the lifestyle in a really effective way visually, and it shouldn't be about that, but actually it is. I want to give the non-vegans the most minimal excuses they could possibly have to hate on the lifestyle. And a part of that, which I found much harder, is to not be the angry vegan. I used to kind of be a lot more filled with frustration and anger and even hate, and I learned that that's not effective either. Like being slow and sluggish and having no energy isn't effective, and always being that angry vegan, that judgy angry vegan, isn't effective either. And Chantel, you mentioned, I guess, how to approach the activists so that they don't feel judged. Often they bring it up because so often we talk about self-care and burnout, and that is just sadly such a common conversation within activist circles, and the fact that you're always on because it's so urgent and you can't stop. And I would take it back to, what is your goal long term? What are you really looking to do? And we want a vegan world overnight, but we know it's not going to happen. So, in order for you to be effective for the animals long term, this is what you need to give your body. Like, sure, we can enjoy that vegan junk food occasionally. It's amazing. I'm glad it's there. However, for you to have the energy and vitality and health that you want to serve the animals and do everything else, most of them have to have a full-time job as well as all the activism that they're doing, which
Yeah.
is very hard work. So self-care and nutrition and nurturing your body with the food that you fuel it, and exercise, obviously, is something I really do look to focus on in my conversations with other vegans that express that they want some help. I probably wouldn't just rock in there and say, hey, you should do this. I certainly wouldn't do that. But once they express that they're struggling, that they're tired, that they're sad, that they don't have energy, that's the direction I would go.
Yeah, perfectly said. And in terms of your approach, like you've been obviously featured in different podcasts. You were with Rip Elsestein and talking about your journey, your adventure, and Rip is someone that is very active as well. And
Mm.
at his age, he's in his 50s, he looks amazing.
Yeah.
He really he walks his talk, and it's so powerful to see. And it was I felt like from the interview that he felt like there was someone in Australia that was like, okay, you're like me, sharing exactly what I'm sharing, doing amazing work, and it's like we should come all together and really help people understand the right way to do this so that we can change the world. And one of I guess you see probably the same obstacles as I kind of look at, but one of the obstacles I see is industry, right? Talking about vegan food, the vegan food that is coming out is from major corporations that have a lot of budget to push it, push it, push it, and they're not going to talk about the health benefits per se. And I was wondering how you feel about that and how we can, make sure that the education that we share is impactful, again, without judgment. And we mentioned that and you explain how to do it, which is brilliant, but impactful enough for people not to fall for the marketing.
Mhm. I guess I'm really torn because I am so happy that there is a vegan option for everything that you want to consume. And
Mm,
I guess I also have to think of who the target market is, right? So when I was like primarily whole food vegetarian and I swapped to primarily whole food vegan, I didn't go straight to all the vegan junk food. So it was only a positive for my health.
mm,
And so if there's someone out there that lives on KFC and Macca's, and they've swapped to vegan KFC and vegan Macca's. Like, I'm really happy that they have that opportunity. Obviously, for their health, I'd like them to go whole food, plant based primarily. However, I'm glad that there's an option for everyone with the food in the same way that I think it's important for there to be an activist for everyone. There can be an in-the-face truth bombs type of an activist that I used to be, and then there can be the more love and compassion activist that I try very hard to be now. So far as the food, the education that you mentioned, it is having these conversations and people we respect sharing the way that they eat in podcast conversations and in social media, and sharing the fact that these are balanced, high nutrient value meals that taste delicious and look amazing. I think we just need to keep sharing it. And I also think that there are like fast versions of more healthy, whole food based meals coming to market. Like, I think the market led with the low hanging fruit, it led with the takeaways and the accidentally vegan, and it led the vegan ice cream, it led with all that rubbish because that was really easy. However, as the movement grows and as people are basing their entire life on eating plant based, there is a demand for those healthy options that you don't have to cook from scratch yourself. I am seeing them popping up around the place. I do hope that more and more these options are going to be available. And we just have to keep educating the people that vegan doesn't mean healthy. It means better for the animals and better for the environment. It
yeah,
doesn't mean healthy by default.
yeah, exactly. Um, while you were talking, I was just thinking about obviously your geographical location being Australia. And as a lot of, I think a lot of Anglophone countries are kind of advanced when it comes to veganism in a way, or vegan products. And, maybe because, I don't know, we share a lot of the products and the companies that own them. But of course, it's still quite, there are countries like Germany where veganism actually is quite big. But I was
Mm.
wondering, since you went vegan, what are the biggest changes you've seen in Australia? And do you ever compare your work and say, well, actually, what I do might be easier if I were like, say, in the US versus here. What's your take on that?
I think I'm in a very lucky little hub or hotspot being here in Sydney. It's a major city. I'm in the east near Bondi, and we have so many amazing options. Apparently, Melbourne takes the cake for Sydney, for Australia, so far as the best options. However, I am in a pretty good spot here in Sydney. What I've probably noticed in the 8 years that I've been vegan is the supermarkets have really stepped up the
Mm,
options that you can now get in supermarkets. So it used to be like the odd vegan restaurant or whatever it was amazing, but now you can just rock into a supermarket and you can buy the healthy vegan alternatives. It doesn't have to be ice cream and junk food and all of that and processed vegan meats and such. The options are becoming really super abundant, and I absolutely love that. That very much warms my heart. It is absolutely amazing to see, and I know it will only continue. So I think we're in a really good spot.
mm. No, it definitely is growing. So for people that perhaps let's give people some more practical advice. So number one, the thing that comes up a lot, for example, is pricing, right? It's so expensive to be vegan. What's your take on that?
I'm wondering whether I ever believed that myth. My take is it's absolute rubbish. If you want to buy all the processed vegan crapola, yeah, it's expensive. It's cheaper than it used to be. It's probably close to on par with the processed animal product based crapola now. However, you don't
Mhm.
want to buy that. I want you to buy the whole food plant based, and that is as cheap as you can possibly get. The lentils, the chickpeas, the fruits and veggies and nuts and seeds, so much more cost effective than, gosh, when I was buying, and the guilt, when I was buying the organic free range eggs, by the tray every single week. The plant based is so much cheaper. And you learn little tricks along the way, like we did when we were learning how to cook animal based meals. If we learned how to do that, or maybe some people were lucky enough to grow up vegetarian or even vegan, amazing. But you learn the
Yeah.
tricks. Like I make pesto, and when I make my pesto, I buy the broken nuts and I buy the nuts on special. I don't buy the perfect nuts for my pesto. I use the broccoli stems. I use like whatever it is, all these little
Yeah.
tricks that we should all be doing to minimize food waste anyway. But along the way, you have your maybe you have your transitional foods where you're first vegan and you buy the burgers that are on special or whatever it may be, and then you get to the point where you make your own burgers, and
Yeah.
maybe you buy your dairy free pesto early days like I did, and
Yeah.
now I
Yeah.
make my
Sure.
own. Like bit by bit you kind of do more yourself because it's cheaper and better and healthier, but you move at your own pace.
Yeah. And so the other question that comes up a lot is, well, how do I change my diet? I do like my breakfast. I like my English breakfast. I like my beans, my bread. I like my bacon. How can people transition so that they don't feel overwhelmed by all the changes coming, and perhaps even mimicking some of the things that they used to eat with a whole food, plant based. And when you have those clients, what's your approach with that?
I would say start first with those meals you already eat that just need a small tweak. So for a lot of us, that might be some sort of oats or some sort of smoothie, and you swap out the milk for a plant milk. You swap out a protein powder to make sure it's plant based, and there's an abundance of amazing plant based options now
Mm,
for that English breakfast. Like the beans are there, the toast is there. You swap out that bacon for, I would never say bacon because I think it's quite disgusting most of the time, but you might swap out that bacon for some mushrooms and spinach and hemp seeds, whatever it is. There's an absolute abundance of options. But, you know, don't go straight to the cauliflower steak instead of your beef steak. Just make a small tweak to a meal that you already eat, that you already love. Do that for one for breakfast, one for lunch, one for dinner. Maybe early days, find a meal prep option that is really easy for you so that you can take care of three or four meals in one foul swoop. Maybe it's a curry and you swap out the mince or whatever sort of meat it was. I never made meat curries. Maybe you swap out the meat for chickpeas or tofu or lentils, an easy swap, and just move at your own pace. If there's something that you love and you're not sure about the vegan option, I'd put it into Instagram. I put hashtag vegan omelette, whatever it is.
Hmm.
And inspiration is going to come up, and often the recipe is going to be there for
Yeah,
free. It's amazing what people share. Just make the use of the other individuals out there that are leading the way.
totally. I like that. So we covered cost, we covered fast approach, easy approach. Do you think, however, that there's a one way to approach it for all? Or do you actually help people find the way that eating a plant-based diet works for them? Say, someone might have digestive system issues, and you want to just make sure that they don't overburden the digestive issues with like a lot of fiber, which isn't automatically going to be there when you go whole food plant-based. Or someone wants to be more raw instead of just vegan, and of course, they have to do it right. And even in the vegan space, there are so many tweaks on diets, and so we have to like, just be careful that we don't do it wrong if we choose one path. So what's your approach with your clients?
There's absolutely not one approach for all, for sure. I really like to know where a client is currently with their eating before they make the change. What's working? What's not working? What's worked in the past? Basically, I want to get them to a point where their meals are at least as delicious and abundant as they were, as where they're coming from. There's so much joy to be gotten from food, and I want my clients to experience that. I don't want it to be a hassle or boring or restrictive. I want it to be exciting and fun and delicious. So we look at what's working, we make those small, simple, easy tweaks with what they're already doing. We maybe think of what has worked in the past, because often someone's fallen off the wagon. Often they had
Yeah.
some really good habits in the past and they're aware of that, and then they've let them go. And so we've got to think, what's worked in the past, how could that maybe fit into your lifestyle now? Time is a huge factor. I have time to do 3 hours food prep on a weekend. I love it. I listen to podcasts. It's amazing. Other people might not love that. And so we've got to see what their lifestyle looks like. So far as gut issues, I would often refer them to someone amazing like Dr. Will Bolsevitz, the gut health MD. There are
Yeah.
so many amazing individuals out there because, again, my body really tolerated lentils. I was lucky. I ate them probably as much as Dr. Michael Greger recommends, which is a lot. But
Yeah.
not everyone, just because it works for me, doesn't mean it works for everyone. So, bit by bit, gradual with the changes so far as those really super high fiber foods. And I'm learning to listen to my clients so far as moving at their own pace. I want everyone to go vegan overnight. That doesn't resonate with everyone. It could feel like pressure to
Mm.
everyone, especially if they had family members that weren't on board yet. We have to be, I guess, understanding and compassionate about it's not
Okay.
just the individual we're speaking to, it's everyone around them as well, and the feedback and the reactions and the grief they're potentially going to be getting from the other people that they share their lives with.
Totally. You mentioned that at the end of the year you're leaving PT and you're focusing on different areas of your business and the plant-based and the vegan activism. What happens to those clients that have been working with you for such a long time? You mentioned some of them have been with you for 18 years, some of them 10. What is the step with them?
They're really sad. It's so sweet. They are sad because I'm actually moving interstate as well. Like I'm like very much gone to a much more relaxed, natural environment, and I'm so incredibly excited about it. However, yeah, I'm very honored and grateful for how sad these clients are. I have a dear work colleague who I've recommended a lot of clients to, and she's going to be absolutely overwhelmed with new clients. So, yay for her. But I've been doing personal training for 18 years, so it is quite a long time, and I hope I'm pushing all my clients to continue exercising and to have it locked and loaded before I leave, because I know
Mm.
if you're in an exercising habit, you've worked really hard to get to that habit where it's non-negotiable and it's a consistent part of your week and you're seeing results and you're feeling results. It really doesn't take long for that habit to be broken. And it's
Yeah.
coming up to the end of the year and Christmas, and a couple of weeks can go by, and then all of January can go by, and all of a sudden they're out of the habits. And I really don't want that to happen for them. So I'm trying to get them all locked in with another trainer, as many as she can possibly fit. And but yeah, hopefully I've set them up in good stead to continue their exercising habit. And look, I'm going to stay in touch with a lot of them. They're friends.
That's brilliant. Um, I was wondering if now you're moving, if this is going to be a business that is going to be based online so that you can still reach them, but also get new clients coming on board from everywhere in the world. And also the other question is, as you're moving into nature, are you thinking about growing your own food, being more self-sufficient? What's the plan?
The food part is definitely a medium term goal. Whenever I listen to people talking about growing their own food, and even listening to you and Brenda recently talking about eating more raw, it resonates with me deeply. It feels right.
Mm.
It won't be in the next few months, but I think in the next 6 to 12 months, that's something I would like to do. The online side of the business, look, right now, the podcast and the journal, they have been my absolute heart, and I've had to split them with personal training for so long
Yeah.
that I'm looking forward to focusing purely on them for 6 months. I'll create a new journal in the first half of this coming year. It'll be a every 2 year type of a product. And so I'm going to give that my full energy for the first 6 months, and then I'll see where I'm at. If I'm missing the one-on-one type of a work, potentially I'll do something online with people who are vegan. I'm just at a point in my life where I don't really want to convince anyone to
Mm.
adopt the lifestyle. I'm kind of I'm not good with the excuses at this point in time. I really love spending time with people who are already there, and I can help them to be healthier and fitter. And I
Mm.
don't need to hear about the butt cheese, but like I'll probably be good after 6 months. Maybe my compassion tank will be a little bit fuller. But for now, I'm super excited to be just working with the plant-based and the vegan.
So I have a question that follows this though. Moving into the countryside can be a little bit different to living in a city where it's quite cosmopolitan. And as you mentioned, you are really lucky you are in a hub where veganism is well accepted, is well developed. This doesn't necessarily translate into going into the countryside. You would think that people that live in the countryside, they are ushers of nature and they look after everything and they look after the animals. But from my experience moving to rural Portugal, I mean, I literally had to open my office in the center where we are now, actually, which is apologize about the noise, but to kind of be a little bit more around this like vegan community and people that are more open-minded, because I found that in the countryside it was such a struggle. They look at animals as, commodity
Numbers.
numbers.
Yeah.
They use them to, you use sheep to clean the land and then they sell and kill, and that was driving me crazy. There was just no, and they didn't want to hear about the vegan message. How are you planning to navigate that part of being in the countryside?
Do you know, it is a great question. And if I was moving to country Victoria, where my family are from, where my mum's side of the family is from, and were previously all farmers, and that would absolutely be the difficult situation I would be dealing with. However,
Mhm.
I'm moving to Noosa, which is where my dad lives, and it's a town of 50,000 instead of a city of 5 million. So it is a big
Yeah.
change. However, I've been going there for over 20 years, and I'm very familiar with the vibe there. It's
Okay.
basically where Sydney siders and Melbourne people, and they're the two biggest cities in Australia. It's basically where they go to not necessarily retire, but to slow down, to escape the grind.
Yeah.
So it has actually got my favorite vegan restaurant in Australia happens to be in Noosa. So
Uh-huh.
they've got amazing food. They've got a farmers market where so many of the stalls are full vegan. Like I could become a junk food vegan in Noosa as easy as I could become one in Sydney. So it's a good move in that regard.
Okay.
However, I appreciate, yeah, for you it must have been much tougher.
It was. We literally our even the expats that come here and left to go to these mountains. They meat eaters for the most part. I think I only met
Mm,
one vegan couple that has
wow.
moved from um, Austria. She's Austrian. It's Portuguese, and they are vegan, and they want to have want to work with regenerative agriculture, and that's also the difference.
Amazing.
People that want to do regenerative agriculture are much more in tune with the animals and the effect of
Mm,
animal farming, and even growing food that has been grown for animals versus human beings, like GMO corn and soy. And so they are much more in tune
mm,
with that, so they will be vegan most often. But the others, they want to grow their own food and they do it, and they love the organic, but they don't really necessarily think that animals should not be eaten. So that's been one of the biggest challenges, even with the expat community, for sure.
yeah, that would be really hard. It takes a lot of energy. I mean, I found that as a personal trainer surrounded by non-vegan other trainers and clients, just the modifying your behavior 24/7 and not freely speaking your heart. For me, it's too much energy wasted. I've
Yeah.
done it for a lot of years, and now I'm happy to, I'm moving, and I'll probably be quite outspoken again because I'll create a whole new circle of friends. Many of them are existing already, actually, that I want to build a vegan community around me, and I want
Mm,
to have less of those conversations where I have to filter myself too strongly
yeah,
because it's too important.
it
So,
is.
yeah.
Totally. Maybe you can create one of those plant pure hubs that are very helpful. And they really are, they're nice because I feel like with food, again, we talked about how good food can bring people together, right? So with food that can bring people
Mhm.
together and open a conversation and not make people feel judged because you're actually consuming something together,
Yeah,
like having a meal together. That's such a nice way to break barriers. So definitely excited
it's a
that for
really
your
100%. It's a really gentle, compassionate way to advocate for the animals,
yeah.
and yeah, I agree.
Brilliant. Well, I don't know if there's anything else that you want to share about any programs that you have running, or people can reach out to you, or even work with you. I know it's a transition time, so probably not as defined, but yeah, let share if anything is going on that we can support you with.
Thank you, Chantel. You've been amazing. The best way to connect with me is just via strongbodygreenplanet.com. There you will find the Plant Positive Journal. It makes an amazing gift and it's shipping all around the world. Well, a lot
Okay.
to the US. Yeah, so it's shipping everywhere, which is amazing. And for your podcast listeners, Healthification is my podcast and it's over 840 episodes deep now, which is
Amazing.
pretty amazing. And it's pinched myself on that thing because I just get to interview passionate and compassionate athletes, authors, activists, doctors, and
Yeah.
I love it. So, yeah, they're the best places for me.
Amazing. Thank you. We will put everything in the show notes anyways. And I really look forward to hearing what's happening next and how you progress. So hopefully we can have you back on the podcast and talk about your new life and how that has developed and, the changes you made. And I'm sure that you'll be a bright light wherever you go.
Thank you so much. You're such a gracious host, and I've really enjoyed this conversation. So huge gratitude.
Thank you. You too. Bye, Kate. Thank you so much, Kate, for being on the show, and thank you everyone for staying on. I hope you really enjoyed Kate's journey, her work, and her wonderful plant-based positive journal, which will help you if you want to get on board with this great lifestyle, or at least keep track of it if you're on it and you're struggling sometimes. If you want to know more about Kate, I'll put everything in the show notes so you can reach out to her directly, follow her ventures, her move into the countryside, and what she's building going forward. All right, guys, as always, if you like this episode, make sure you share it, you rate it, help us grow, and I will see you next week. Bye.